My Backpack, MK Books, Knight Bank Limited, Habib Bank Limited, Wateen, Interwood, Franklin Covey, and Leader in Me. We also thank our SOT supporters, including Paramount Books and Nestle Pure Life, who have contributed to this year's event. Moving to our housekeeping instructions, please ensure your cell phones are silent. Please use the SOT apps to scan the QR code for session Q&A and feedback. Share your thoughts on social media using the hashtags hashtag Guardians of the Future and hashtag SOT 2023. If you need assistance, our ushers are here to help you. For questions, please either use the flashcards provided by the ushers or the mobile app. The panel discussion will last for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes for question and answer. The very first session is an interesting debate on the topic Venturing Beyond Horizons, Igniting Dynamic Leadership for the Uncharted Future. And the speaker is Mr. Sean Covey. Mr. Sean Covey, a business executive, author, and also the president of Franklin Covey Education. He is dedicated to transforming global education through principle centered leadership. He leads the Leader in Me program in over 4,000 schools across 50 countries. As a New York Times best-selling author, he is renowned for books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. Mr. Sean is a versatile keynote speaker and addresses diverse audiences. He is a Harvard graduate with a history as BYU's starting quarterback. He has been a two-time ESPN Most Valuable Player. Mr. Sean, welcome aboard.
Okay, everybody, can you hear me okay? Well, it's great to be with you, and I wish I could be with you in person, but I'm going to come into your premises today via video. So it's a real pleasure to be with you. I'm so appreciative for this opportunity. So I have a few things I'd like to share today. I don't know if I can get my screen working. I do have a PowerPoint deck I wanted to show, but I seem to be having problems sharing it. I'm just going to try one more time to see if I can get it up. And there we go. Can you see my screen? Okay, I'm assuming you can see this. So I'll just move forward, and I hope you can see everything I'm sharing with you. This is a picture of a hotel that my father, great-grandfather actually started. It's called Covey's Little America. And this is a motor lodge, and this was in the 1950s. So about 80 years ago, my great-grandfather started this hotel called Covey's Little America. And his son, my grandfather, was the next owner of the business, and he ran the hotel. And my father, Stephen Covey, was trained to become the new general manager of the hotel. And here's a picture of my father. But while my father was going to business school, he fell in love with teaching. And he didn't want to run the family business. So after business school, he came and he went to Harvard Business School. And after business school, he went to my grandfather, his dad, and he said, "Dad, I don't want to run the family hotel. I want to be a teacher." And my grandfather said to him, "That's great, son. I never liked business myself. Why don't you go ahead and be a teacher?" And my father, Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, was a world-renowned teacher. And he always believed in the greatness of people. In fact, from a very early age, he said, "My vision is to unleash human potential. So he became a teacher, and he wrote this book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is considered the best-selling business book of all time. It's not really a business book. The book is about becoming an effective person. Whether you're a principal, a teacher, or a CEO of a business, or a mom or a dad, or anyone in any field, this book was for them. I wrote a book a few years after this book was published for teenagers called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. When I wrote this book, at the time, I didn't have teenagers. My kids were younger. Now that I have teens, I take back everything I said. There's no such thing as an effective teen. Just joking. There's plenty of great teens out there. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about education today and about leadership in education. But I wanted to give you this little background so you can understand that you really can't understand where I'm coming from without first understanding my father, who was all about teaching people principles and who so believed in the potential and the greatness in every individual. So let me just share with you a few trends that I see in my travels around the globe that are going on in education right now. The first one is what I'll call multiple intelligences. Increasingly, the education community is understanding that everyone is different and that people are smart in different ways. I love this little cartoon where the proctor says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And you look at all these animals, and they're just like our children who are gifted and talented in so many different ways. And the elephant's going to struggle climbing that tree, and the bird's going to cheat and going to fly up to the top. And the monkey's going to do really well. And so often our educational system has been designed like this cartoon, where it's designed for a particular kind of intelligence. And increasingly, I think we're recognizing as an education community the importance of seeing the gifts and talents of every student and finding different ways to assess and measure their intelligence. That's one trend. A second trend going on right now that I'm sure you're seeing as educators is mental health and wellness in students and in educators is really struggling right now. It's in the United States, it's the number one issue. Globally, I know it's a big issue. In Pakistan, you can let me know if you think this is a top issue. But depression and anxiety in youth after the pandemic has doubled to pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing this all over the place. Just a lot of stress and anxiety and depression in young people. And I don't think social media is helping. I think it's part of the problem. As well, we find that the number one issue in teachers is also mental wellness and health. Just look at this survey done by Rand last year, where they talked about job-related stress. And they looked at general working adults in the workforce, and 35% felt frequent stress. With teachers in schools, it was 73%, and with principals, it was 85%. So I feel that mental wellness and mental health is another significant trend that we're facing across the globe in education. A third is the idea that the economy is totally shifted from the industrial age, where it was all about manufacturing, assembly lines, to the knowledge worker age, where it's all about synergy and having jobs where there really isn't a clear definition of exactly what you're supposed to do. It's a much different world, and collaboration and synergy and people skills, social emotional skills, leadership, these are more important than ever before. Communication, listening, empathy. Increasingly, these are the skills that are sought for by employers. In a recent survey, 2,000 employers from 24 countries were asked what they wanted from employees. What they said were things like this: problem solving, positive thinking, creativity, initiative seekers, cultural sensitivity, teamwork, empathy, communication, time management, etc. We find that employers out there today have what they call a career skills gap, where the skills that our students are graduating with from high school and from secondary or post-secondary schools, colleges, and universities, the skills that they have are insufficient. Reading, writing, math, and the associated skills are very important, but they're necessary but insufficient. Today, to be able to make it well in the workforce, you've got to have these new skills, these social emotional skills, like you're seeing here on the screen. So, with that backdrop, we have these challenges today. We're realizing that kids are gifted in different ways. We're realizing that mental wellness and health has become a big issue. And then we also see this career skills gap that's out there and the need for these social emotional skills more than ever before. With that, I wanted to tell you a little story about a lady, a great leader, who's actually in this same conference with me. I think she's talking right now in another room. But I wanted to talk about what she did as a principal, as an educator, facing these challenges. So go back in time about 20 years at A.B. Combs Elementary School in Raleigh, North Carolina. Along comes Muriel Summers, principal, and she inherits a school that is really struggling. They have low enrollment. They have a capacity to have 850 kids in the school, but they only have 350 attending. Low test scores, some of the lowest in their district of 100 plus schools. They don't have a clearly defined mission. There's a lack of pride by the teachers. They work in isolation. The building isn't taken care of very well. Very little parent involvement. The school is really failing. And the superintendent, Muriel Summers' boss, comes to her when she was desperate as a principal and says, Muriel, you've got to change your school or we're going to shut it down. She said, you can't do that. And she said for the next year, she did all kinds of random acts of improvement, as she called it. She tried different things, but nothing really worked. Finally, he came to her and said, Muriel, you have 1 week to come up with a new idea, or we're going to change your school and shut it down. So she's desperate. At this time, she decided to go to a workshop on the 7 habits of highly effective people taught by my father. And she wasn't sure what she was looking for, but needed some new ideas. So she went to this workshop, and my father, Stephen Covey, taught about the 7 habits. And he said, you know, these habits are powerful and they can change your life. Habit 1 is called be proactive. It's about taking responsibility and not being a victim and taking initiative. And then he went through all the habits. Habit 4, think win-win. That if you want to have good relationships, you've got to really care about the other person as well as yourself. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. The key to communication is to listen first. Sharpen the saw. You've got to balance your life, body, heart, mind, and spirit. Anyway, as he was teaching these ideas, she said, oh my goodness, this is exactly what we need in our school. And so she went back, during a break, um, at the seminar, she went up to Dr. Covey, my father, and said, Dr. Covey, Muriel Summers, I'm a principal of an elementary school. Can these ideas be taught to young children? And he said, Muriel, I don't know why not. Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? So she went back to her school and said, I just had the greatest experience. I want to teach our kids these same 7 habits. And she said, let's go out and talk with parents and talk with employers in the community this week to find out what they want us to teach their kids. So they did that. And they came back and reported and said, parents and the business community, they want us to teach the kids initiative, vision, goal setting, responsibility, getting along well with other people, valuing differences, managing their time, managing their lives. Nobody said higher test scores. What everybody wanted was these social emotional skills, these leadership skills, call them what you will, that we talked about earlier. So, with that in mind, she came up with a new idea, which was this: our mission is to develop leaders one child at a time. She decided to develop a leadership school where they would teach reading, writing, math, and science, all the core subjects, but in addition, personal leadership. She was going to teach these kids all these skills that she had learned in that seminar. So she went back to her superintendent, her boss, and said, "This is my idea." And he said, "That sounds compelling. Why don't you give it a try?" So off she went, and she changed everything. The first thing she did is she taught all of her staff members, all of her teachers, the 7 habits. She said, "We need to have a common language. We need to say things like begin with the end in mind, and it should mean the same thing for all of us, and synergize and sharpen the saw." So they started with a common language, and it started with the teachers, and then it went to the students. And that gave them a vocabulary they could all use. She taught the kids about goal setting, personal goals. They were tracked. Every student had an academic goal and a personal goal that they would keep in their own notebook, a data notebook where they kept track of all of their test scores and all of their goals in one place so that they were in charge of their education. She gave all the students leadership roles. Students were in charge of different things. All of the students had a leadership responsibility. Some of them, like you're seeing here, were in charge of classroom or school tours. So if visitors came, they would greet them at the door and they would walk them around the school. The students were in charge of all kinds of things: audio visual, playground leaders, lunchroom leaders, writing leaders. Those that were really good at writing would help other students on their writing skills and so on. Well, they also taught the kids etiquette, how to meet and greet people, how to look them in the eye, um, how to speak in public. This was a very important skill they were teaching because this is what the business community said they wanted the kids to learn. So all this went on for many years, and guess what? Everything changed. Student enrollment went from 350 to 850 with a big waiting list. Test scores went from the lowest in the district to some of the highest in the district. The parents got very engaged. Engagement levels of teachers shot up through the roof. Student self confidence soared. And in 2006, just a few years after they started this, they were named the #1 school of their kind in America. They received the same award about a decade later in 2014. Remarkable turnaround, a remarkable school. So famous, in fact, that every week practically people from around the world, principals and educators and leaders, would come to visit the school to see what they were doing. So, talk about a remarkable leader, Muriel Summers. She totally transformed the school from the inside out, starting with herself and the teachers. So, today, the program she started, which is called Leader in Me, it's a leadership model, is now in over 71 countries and 7,000 schools, including hundreds of schools in Pakistan. And there's a book about it called The Leader in Me, which captures the story I just told you. So, as you think about your own situation right now, whether you're a Leader in Me school or not, the principles that I'm going to share with you apply to any situation. And I'll review these with you. This is why Leader in Me works. It works because of the powerful paradigms. Paradigms are the way you see the world. It's the glasses through which you see everything and how you interpret things. It's your perspective. Principles are governing laws, natural laws. Principles are things like responsibility is a principle. They always work. Abundance is a principle. Renewal, hard work, love, understanding, mutual benefit. These are all natural laws or principles, and they work regardless of where you live. An inside out approach, I'll talk about that in just a minute, and ubiquitousness, which is the idea that for something to really take root, it's got to be with everyone all the time, everywhere. You can't just try it in the fifth grade and expect it to transform the school, or try it with a group of teachers and expect it to transform the school. If you really want to remarkably and significantly improve your school, it's got to be with everybody, the students, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, everybody else in functional roles that support the school. Well, you get everyone doing the same thing at the same time, it's remarkable what can happen. Let me just share a few thoughts on each of these. The leader me paradigms are powerful. Um, these are the paradigms. They're different than what we traditionally think of. Everyone can be a leader, not just a few. Leadership is for every single student. The change starts with me. If I really want to change my school, it's going to start with me first, and then it goes to others outside of my influence. Everyone has genius. That we look at children and students as each one has unique gifts and talents. That educators empower students to lead their own learning. We don't control, we lead, we empower, and then develop the whole person and not just the academic child. These paradigms are really foundational to really any success in education. So, just a brief story about this I think illustrates this point. This is Death Valley. It's one of the hottest places on earth. And this is in the United States. And you might have your own Death Valley in Pakistan. I don't know your train like you do. But temperatures get really hot up here, up to 136 degrees, 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And nothing grows here because there's no rain. In fact, over a 4.5 year period one time, 3.5 year period, they got 1/2 inch of rain. It's a tiny little speck of rain. So everything is dead. Nothing grows. And that's why they call it Death Valley. If you drive down the road, you can just, there's no life whatsoever. However, in the year 2005, remarkably, there was a lot of rain. Over about a 6 month period, they got about 6 inches of rain. So typically they get maybe in a year 1 inch, and they got 6 inches, 6 years worth in just 6 months. So when they drove down the valley after this big rainfall, what did you see? Wildflowers were everywhere. They bloomed all over the place. So really, Death Valley was inaccurate as a definition of this place. It wasn't Death Valley, it was Dormant Valley. That was probably the better term, Dormant Valley, because these seedlings were in the ground. They just needed the proper environment to sprout. And so it is with people, and so it is with students. And that's what Muriel Summers learned in her school, is it wasn't dormant, these gifts and talents. I mean, they weren't dead. They were dormant. The seedlings were there. They just needed the proper nutrition, the proper environment to sprout. And this is all about these paradigms. It's amazing what happens when we start to see the world differently through a different lens. Okay, so those are paradigms. Let me talk a little bit about principles. Principles, again, are natural laws. Why does Leader Me work, and why can principles work anywhere? Um, they work because they teach us to become interdependent people. 7 habits help us move from being dependent to being independent, which is a good thing, to being an interdependent, which is even better. Interdependence means you get along well with other people. And the 7 habits teach us to win a private victory first. We need to be proactive, take responsibility for our lives, begin with the end in mind, have a vision of where we want to go, put first things first, make sure the things that matter most get the proper time and attention. If we do that, we win a private victory. We become independent. And then you are prepared to get along well with other people. You think win-win, which means mutual benefit. I care about me, and I care about you just as much. I'm going to be courageous with my point of view and considerate of yours. And then we seek first to understand, then to be understood, which is the idea that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them accordingly. And finally, synergize, which is I'm going to value your differences because together we can create something that doesn't exist right now. And by doing all of that, I win a public victory. So these are principles and natural laws that are so important in any organization that we've got to first practice these principles ourselves before we can do them well with other people and become interdependent. Finally, sharpen the saw is all about making sure that you balance heart, mind, body, and spirit. You have 4 parts to yourself. Just like a car has 4 tires, and all 4 tires need to be inflated properly. If one is running low on air, it's going to impact all the other 4. You've got a body to take care of. You've got a heart, which is relationships. You've got a mind, your mental development. And you've got a spirit, which is what inspires you, what motivates you, and what really drives you. And all 4 of those need constant renewal and nourishment. So those are the principles behind these habits that are so powerful. So paradigms and principles. Let me talk about one other thing, inside out. Roland Barthes was a great educator. He did a ton of research, Harvard trained, Harvard professor. And after studying schools for years, this is what he said. The nature of the relationships among the adults who inhabit a school has more to do with its quality and character and the accomplishments of its pupils than any other factor. Think of that. The relationships you have as principals, as teachers, with other teachers and other principals and other administrators and parents and so forth has more to do with the outcomes of the kids than any curriculum or program or anything else you do. This is culture. This is what Roland is talking about. The culture of the school is what drives these outcomes of our students. So, a quick story. Mountainville Academy. This is a school that opened up near my home. It's a public school, not a private school, but public. And when it opened up, it had this beautiful brand new building. And I was so excited to try to get my kids in. And there was a big waiting list. And we got lucky and we got in to this school. Well, the school started. And after 1 year, they fired the principal. I couldn't believe it. And then they put in a new principal. And a year later, they fired that principal. So 2 years, 2 principals were in and out, fired after 1 year each. And then you're seeing Emma. Okay, Emma is a third grade teacher, and she interviewed to become the new principal and won the job. So she was going to be the new principal. And the problem with the school was there was a lot of teachers that didn't like each other. There was a lot of fighting going on between the first, second, and third grade teachers and the fourth, fifth, and sixth grade teachers. There was everything Roland Barthes talked about. They weren't getting along in the school, and it showed up in a multitude of ways. So there's all this bad blood, bad feelings, infighting going on inside of the school. So Emma comes along as the new principal, and I went to Emma and I said, "My kids go here, Emma. I've got 2 kids in the school, but I'm going to pull out of the school unless you can fix this. But you got to do something different." And I said, "I just saw this school called A.B. Combs Elementary, the one I just told you about. And I'd like to fly you back. I have lots of frequent flyer miles, and you can use my miles, and I'll fly you for free to go see A.B. Combs Elementary. So she did that. She went back with her assistant principal, and they went to a leadership day at A.B. Combs Elementary, where the kids get together and they have a big assembly and they show off how they run the school. And Emma watched this and she cried most of the day. And she said, I didn't know you could run a school like this. She saw how these habits were incorporated in the school, how the kids treated each other, the paradigms of the school that were operating, where every adult in the school believed that every child was a genius and they were empowering these kids. They saw the seedlings of their greatness, and there are wildflowers sprouting everywhere in the school, so to speak. So she came back and she implemented this program inside of her school. Well, things quickly changed. And about 3 or 4 months into the process, I came and visited the school, and I ran into a teacher, and she said to me, "Oh, are you Mr. Covey? Are you the one that helped us get Leader and me in the school?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, things are so much better. Thank you so much." And I said, "Well, what is different?" And she leaned back and she thought for a second, and then she said, "We like each other now. We're getting along." And she was talking about the teachers in the school. And it transformed the school. The school has become an outstanding school, one of the highest performing schools in the state of Utah, where I live. And I was thrilled to see it. But it all came from an inside out approach. We can't expect the students to change and the school to transform if we first don't change ourselves. We have to be more proactive. We need to think win win more often. We need to seek first to understand more often. We need to renew ourselves on a regular basis so that we can be strong ourselves. And that will cascade to other teachers, then to the students, then to the parents, then to the community. You can never skip an inside out approach. Finally, I'll just say this ubiquitousness, meaning the best thing to do is anytime you start something, you've got to make it everywhere all the time. It's got to impact your culture, the career, college, and life skills that you're teaching, the academics. It's got to be everywhere all the time. Those are these are principles that really work in any situation. So if you think about a school, there's so many ideas on how to improve education, right? It's usually from people that aren't in education that always have the solutions. They say, well, if you only had a better curriculum, that'd be the key. Or you need more professional development of your teachers. Or you need more community involvement. Get your parents more involved. You need more money, more parent involvement. You need more accountability. You need more technology. If you could only get on top of AI, that would change your school. Or we hear this sometimes from the business community, just run it like we run our businesses and everything will be okay, which we know doesn't work. The reality is they're all good things, right? But the reality is they're all branches up on top of the tree. And and the roots are different things. And if we don't nurture the roots with powerful principles and new paradigms, ways of looking at things, and the belief in inside out that it's got to start with me. I've got to change my behavior before I can expect the school to change. If we don't work on the roots, everything up there, which are all good things, will not really take effect. You've got to work on the roots. Henry David Thoreau, great thinker, once said, "For every thousand hacking at the leaves of evil, there is one striking at the root." So, let me tell you a story that I think encapsulates a lot of what I'm talking about, and it's a personal story. Um, and then I'll wrap up, and we'll have a few minutes for questions if you'd like. Okay. So, This is my son Nathan, and Nathan is um, he's older now, but when he was young, he had a lot of social anxiety. So when he was a kid, 5 years old, it was really hard to get him to go to kindergarten, his first year of school. He went maybe every other day at best because he would get around people and get really anxious. And then when he got into first grade and second grade, his social anxiety seemed to only increase. And it was a constant struggle. I remember one time calling up the principal and saying, I'm taking Nathan to school. I know when he gets to school that he's going to get really nervous. Could you come out and meet me in the parking lot and help bring him into class, into school? So I got to school, and once Nathan saw all the other kids, he got really nervous, and he started to hang on to the seat. He was, I think, 7 years old at the time, and I had to pry his fingers off one by one and kind of rip him off the seat. And I handed him to the principal, and the principal carried him into the school. Nathan was hitting the principal, hitting him on his back, and I was so embarrassed, and the whole thing was so traumatic. I went in my car, and I remember just crying and thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this troubled boy? Well, that continued. I remember it was in second grade that I got him to sign up to play American baseball, a great sport we play a lot of over here. And he came to the first practice. It took me a lot of cajoling to get him to sign up. But when he got to the first practice and he saw all the other players and the coach, he got so nervous that he fell down in the grass and just laid there and played like he was dead, like he was asleep. And I went and got the coach, and I said, Coach Smith, come over and help my son. He's really shy. And coach came over and looked down at Nathan and said, Nathan, hey, I'm the coach. It's okay. Things are going to be all right. Just get up and come with us to practice. And Nathan just laid there like this, didn't move. And he laid there for 1 hour. And when practice was over and the kids all left, he got up and walked back in my car, and I took him home. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was really discouraged about Nathan and his behavior and his anxiety, and it really was kind of bothersome for me. And I started to develop a negative paradigm of Nathan, a limiting paradigm where I thought, okay, he's going to struggle a lot. Maybe he'll never be what I hope he could be. Um, and this kind of happened subtly because I loved him and I cared for him. But I was so frustrated with his behavior that I was developing this negative paradigm. And then I had an experience one day. I was at a sporting event, and Nathan was sitting next to me. And this was in second grade. And he started to kick the seat of the gentleman sitting in front of him. The gentleman was getting upset, and finally he turned around and said, would you get your son to please stop kicking my chair? So I was mad at Nathan. I reached over and I squeezed his arm, and I said, Nathan, just stop it. Just stop it. And I squeezed his arm, and I said it in a real negative tone. And I looked over, and Nathan, he just wilted, just like this. And I could tell I really offended him. And then my conscience spoke to me. My better self, something inside me clicked. And I had this really strong impression. And my inner voice said to me, how dare you treat your son that way? How dare you speak to him in that tone of voice? Don't you realize how great this boy is and what he's going to do? And I got a glimpse just for a moment of the greatness of this kid. I saw the wildflowers in him. And it hit me so hard and strong, and I was so ashamed at how I had treated him that I really couldn't even watch the sporting event. It was a football game, American football. I couldn't even watch it the rest of the time. And I went home and I told my wife about this paradigm shift I had experienced. I said to her, Rebecca, I had this experience with Nathan, and I saw his greatness, and I think part of the problem is I've developed a negative paradigm of him, a limiting paradigm where I see him as insufficient, and it's being communicated to him in lots of subtle ways. and I've got to change. And so I made up my mind right then and there that I was going to change. And so I did. And I said to myself, this is a great kid. He's going to figure it out, and I'm here to help him. So I started working with Nathan. I started talking about goals with him. And I said, Nathan, do you want to overcome your anxiety? And he said, yes. I said, okay, I'll help you. Let's work on it. Let's make your weakness your strength. So he started to work on it. He started to go to school more. He started to try things more. It started getting better. And then when he was in fourth grade, he came home one day from school and said, the principal just asked me to speak at this upcoming event, our leadership day we're doing in 2 weeks. And she asked me to speak because you're the 7 Habits guy, and I don't want to do this. Can you please call the principal and get me out of it? And I said, Nathan, I'm not going to call the principal, and you'll do great at this. He said, no, get me out of this. I can't do it. Well, this was going to be a speech in front of about 200 parents, as well as all the kids at the school. So part of me was kind of afraid of what would happen. I thought maybe he'll fall down on the grass and play dead. But the better part of me thought, Nathan can do this. So I watched. As the day got closer, Nathan prepared a speech. And he got up at that big day in front of 200 people. And I'm going to show you the video clip. I'm hoping that the audio works on this. So as you watch this, maybe the audio isn't that good, but maybe it does work. But watch this. I want you to watch during this speech. At one point, Nathan gets nervous. He forgets his lines, and he's about to faint. He starts looking up. He starts breathing hard. And that was kind of his moment of truth, if he was going to play dead or pull through. I didn't know it, but somebody filmed this, and they gave it to me years later. But here's Nathan. Okay. I understand that there was no audio on that, but I'll just kind of walk you through it. When Nathan stood up, you could see he started off, he was doing okay. In the middle of the speech, he was speaking about habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And he told a story about how he had bad ankles, and the doctors he went to wouldn't listen to him. And they would just say, oh, I know what it is, but they didn't take time to properly diagnose his problem. And finally, he found a doctor that did, really listened. And he talked about the importance of listening and always seeking to have a prescription. I mean, to have a diagnosis before a prescription. At one point, he almost fainted, but then he caught himself and he finished, and he got a really strong applause afterwards. And you could see the principal. That was Emma that I told you about. She went over and congratulated Nathan and said, "Good job, Nathan." And that was a big breakthrough day for him. In fact, he came home after that experience and he said, "Dad, I'm a pretty good public speaker." And then he started to volunteer for new opportunities speaking in public again and again. He even sang a song in front of a big audience just a few months later. And his confidence grew and grew. And this was the inflection point where everything changed. And today, he's become the most outgoing person you've ever seen. In high school, he was the one that was always the life of the party, the one that would go up and talk with people. In fact, he stopped using his cell phone his senior year because he felt like people were always on their phones too much, and he wanted to get people talking more. It was a complete transformation, and his weakness became his strength. And I believe that so much of this happened because of the paradigm shift I experienced as his father, where I saw him differently. And when I saw him differently, that communicated itself in so many subtle ways. And this is why paradigms are so foundational, because if we can see that there's leaders in every student, there's genius in every student, that to change the school, to change my relationship with the most important people in my life, it starts with me. That my job is to empower the greatness of these students and to find the wildflowers in each one of them, because there's no dumb kids. They're just their potential is just latent, and it needs to be unleashed. So those are some of the key lessons I've learned about leadership and education. It's about having paradigms and principles that make a difference. It's about having a plan of some kind. Um, I love this little cartoon. It says, "I think you should be more explicit here in step two." I don't know how well you can see that, but you can see a big formula on the board, and in the middle it says, "Then a miracle occurs." And so often, this is our system for school improvement. We're counting on a miracle to take place to make our school better. The reality is, we need to have a system for doing this. And if you go back to that chart that I showed, at the base of it are principles, paradigms, inside out, the culture of the school. This is how schools change from the inside out. Is you got to get down to the roots. So I'll just wrap up with a few slides about the genius in kids. When I travel around the world, I love to pick up funny things I find, notes from students, test responses, and so forth. So here's just a couple I'll close with. Um, this one's from Brooke. It says, "Dear Mom, thank you so much for being my mom. If I had a different mom, I would punch her in the face and go find you. Love, Brooke." And this one, "I love you with all my butt. I would say heart, but my butt's bigger." So only a genius kid could come up with a note like that. This one says, "In the space below, write any overall comments about this course." Student writes, "If I had 1 hour to live, I'd spend it in this class because it feels like an eternity." And finally, what are 3 things you want to do in the future? 1, get a girlfriend. 2, kiss her. 3, rule the world. So anyhow, that's all I have to show you today. But I think we have a few more minutes, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have on any topic about what we've discussed today or anything else that's on your mind. I'm unable to hear
Hello.
anything. If
Yes.
you, oh, there
Thank
we
you.
go. I can hear you now. Yeah.
I have a question, a couple of
Okay.
questions. Right. Do you think your book changed the life of teens suffering from anxiety and depression?
Well, the Seven Habits for Teens book is it was written for teenagers, and it's all about trying to help the kids find hope in their lives. That book took me 3 years to write, and I remember when I was writing it, I got a little piece of paper and I stuck it on top of my computer, and it was just the word hope, HOPE. And the idea was everything I'm doing in this book is all about trying to help kids have hope for the future and hope around their own lives and their situations. And it was simple. It was simply an effort to take the 7 habits and to make them applicable to younger kids. Because these principles that my father wrote about apply to anyone at no matter what age. In fact, I was surprised at how quickly teenagers understood and could apply the 7 habits. It seems like they were much better at it than adults because they don't have a lot to unlearn like us adults. And so, yeah, the teen book was written for teens to help them overcome fear, anxiety, doubts, and it's been really popular and has done pretty well. So yeah, thank you for that question.
Thank you, sir. One last question. So, are you planning to make a play on your book so people can understand these habits visually?
What do you mean by make a play?
Sorry. Make a maybe a video or something, a drama.
Oh
Play.
yeah. Well, you know, we are. We do have. We have 7 Habits of Happy Kids, which is it's a video series. So it's for younger kids, like elementary school kids. But they're a series of videos that we've made, and we're making a lot more of them. I don't know if you've seen like Bluey, which is really popular right now on Disney Plus, or Winnie the Pooh, which is kind of an old classic. But we're going to make a series of videos about the 7 habits. They're cartoons for kids. We already have. If you're a part of a Leader in Me school, you can. We have a lot of these already, but we're making a lot more, and we're really excited about it. Just
Okay.
because the principles they really work. I remember teaching one set of students the 7 habits for teens, and one young lady wrote me a letter, and she said, "Dear Sean, I wanted to tell you about habit 4, think win-win. Thank you for teaching me this habit." And she went on to say, "I have this friend. Well, she's kind of a friend, but she's kind of a competitor. And she's always in the same classes as me, and she's in plays and drama like me, and we're always competing against each other. And I don't like her at all. I kind of fake like I like her, but really down deep, I'm always jealous of her and competing with her. And it's always she wins or I win." And her nasal laugh, I remember this in her letter because it kind of stuck out. She has this nasal laugh that really drives me crazy. And then she said, "And the other day, when I learned about think win win, that you can both win in life, that life isn't a competition. Sports are a competition, the business world is a competition, but life isn't and relationships aren't. When I learned about that concept," she said, "oh my goodness, everything changed. I no longer compete with this girl. I like her now. When she succeeds, I don't have to be jealous of it. I can be happy for her because I know that I can succeed too. There's enough success to go around." And she said, "Thank you for teaching me about win-win because it's changed my life." I got so many letters like this from teenagers. I remember another letter from a teenager who said, "Wow, thank you for teaching me about being proactive, that I can control my own weather, emotional weather inside my own mind, and that when somebody makes fun of my hair, I don't have to let it ruin my day." So, anyhow, we have big plans for the 7 habits, and we are going to be making a lot of videos, cartoons about them, and we're also making a graphic novel, The 7 Habits for Teens. A graphic novel is like a cartoon book that we're developing right now.
We are looking forward to it, definitely. Okay, last question, sir. What is that
Yes.
one? What is that one specific habits from 7 habits that you believe has the greatest impact on personal and academic?
Well, it's hard to pick out one single habit, but if I had to choose one, for me, it would probably be habit 2. Begin with the end in mind, because it's about vision and goal setting. And we encourage everyone to develop a personal mission statement. A personal mission statement is it's like a constitution. You write it and it's all about what do you feel is most important to you? What do you want to accomplish when you're by the time you're 80 years old? What matters most to you? What do you feel called to do? What do you feel like your life is asking of you? So I remember my father, Stephen Covey, he taught me a lot about a mission statement, and he had one. It was really short, and but he felt he had a special purpose, and his purpose was to take principle-centered leadership to as many people as he could. And so he spent his whole life, and he was a teacher, like I said, for like 30 years, and then he thought, I don't want my ideas to die with me, so I'm going to start a company. So he started what is now known as Franklin Covey, with the idea that he wanted this company to live far beyond him. But his purpose was take these principles, responsibility, abundance, love, hard work, renewal, all the principles in the 7 habits, take these to the world. And so I've developed my own mission statement, um, and it means a lot to me, and it's about what matters most to me, and it really motivates me. I encourage you to do the same. We also have a mission statement for our family. I encourage you to write one for your family if you don't have one. You can just sit down with your kids, or even if they're older and away from the home, you can get on the phone and just talk through what's important. And over a few week period, develop a simple statement, a mission statement for your family. And it can be a really strong governing force in your life. My father and mother had us do this when we were kids. And there's 9 of us. I'm one of 9 children. And when I was young, they sat us down. I was, I think, 16 at the time. And they said, we're going to write a family mission statement. What is important to you? We all gave our input. And then they said, okay. And they took the input and came back with some drafts. And eventually we came up with a mission statement. And the mission statement, I don't remember exactly, but it basically said this: our home is a place of peace, happiness, development, and I remember fun, because we wanted to have it be a fun home, and a place where we can um, have good times together so that we can contribute to the world. So that was our mission. And what it meant to me is it made us feel like we were a team, that we mattered. It kind of galvanized us. And today I'm very close with my brothers and sisters. We all get along really well, which is hard to do. And I'm certain it was because of the mission statement we had. So the most important work, everyone, that we all do is within the 4 walls of our own home. It really is. It's the most important work we do, and that we should spend our best and finest time with those that we love the most. I think the second most important work being done in the world today is the work that we're doing in schools to help these young students get prepared for a world that nobody can even imagine, with AI, what's happening with artificial intelligence and all the challenges and the contention in the world. These kids need so much help and development and assistance. And I believe that I'm hopeful for the future that good things can happen. But I encourage you, as moms and dads, husbands and wives, partners, whatever your situation is, that you put your finest efforts into your children and into our schools so that we can develop some remarkable kids for the future. So thank you so much, Pakistan. It's such a good thing to be with you. I wish I could be there in person. I will visit your country sometime soon. And
Sure.
I appreciate you and respect you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for an insightful talk. Thank you. Thank you. No problem, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have our next session at 1:40 sharp. So see you.